The member from the 31st to move the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move Amendment 153.
It has been moved and seconded that Amendment 153 be adopted. Remarks, the good member from the 31st Legislative District, Representative Stokesbary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think that you and probably everybody else in this chamber are intimately familiar with a phrase from our state's Constitution, maybe the most memorable phrase from our state's Constitution, that education is the paramount duty of the state of Washington. Mr. Speaker, when I decided to try to join this august body, I promised my neighbors that I would fight to make sure that every child, regardless of their zip code or family background, has the right to obtain a world-class education. And that would certainly extend to those students who are in the special education system or qualify for an individual education plan. Mr. Speaker, I think that I'm not the only one who believes that. May I read from the underlying bill?
Please proceed.
The very first line, first section, line 7. The legislature finds that students receiving special education services are entitled under both federal and state law to a free, appropriate public education that enables their full participation. I agree completely with that, Mr. Speaker. And the amendment before us, I think, offers a better way to achieve that noble goal than the underlying bill. And that is why I am bringing this striking amendment, because I think that intent section is incredibly well articulated, and I think the policy described in this striking amendment can more effectively get us there. There's a few key differences between what's in the striking amendment before us and what's in the underlying bill. The first has to do with what's referred to as the cost multiplier. Students enrolled in special education receive a multiple of the normal allotment in our prototypical school funding model. The underlying bill would increase that multiplier to 1.059, whereas this striking amendment would increase it to 1.12. That is significantly more resources to our school districts to ensure that they can provide those services that every student is entitled to. More importantly, Mr. Speaker, there is also a cap that school districts face that limits the number of students that are able to be enrolled or to receive this special education cost multiplier. The underlying bill, to its credit, eventually gets rid of that cap, but it does so very slowly. It increases the cap by just 0.5% a year. Currently, it's 13%, so it would only go up to 13.5% next year, 14% the year after that, and so on. It would take over 4 years before that cap finally reaches 15%, which is where school districts are reporting they're at right now. The striker, however, would lift that cap immediately to 15% to make sure that we meet school districts where they're at and the numbers they're reporting on. It would provide immediate relief to districts in their budgets and make sure they have immediate access to dollars to provide these special education children with the education that they are constitutionally entitled to. But what I'm most excited about by this striking amendment, Mr. Speaker, is a new idea that would provide advocates for families and students receiving special education through ESDs. Mr. Speaker, study after study shows that the single best determinant of a child's education success is having involved parents. I was very lucky to have a set of involved parents. Not nearly everybody in our state is so blessed. I realize that I come from a lot of privilege when I get to say that I have that. Not everybody is so privileged. But Mr. Speaker, it's really hard to legislate involved parents. If a child has parents who are too busy working or face a language barrier or just can't be bothered to be involved for whatever unfortunate reason, it's really hard for us to pass a law to make them care if they don't already care. But what we can do, Mr. Speaker, is adopt a policy that's included in this striking amendment, which will provide these students in the special education system with an advocate to make sure that every special ed student has somebody fighting for them, fighting to develop an IEP that is tailored to their unique needs and helps them maximize their chances for student success. Enjoy the same privileges that I have, even if the child doesn't happen to be so fortunate to have the parents like I was fortunate to have. I think this is a really key way we can make sure that the underlying bill doesn't just provide more money to school districts to afford to pay for more resources, but actually helps make sure that those resources are directed in the most impactful way to help kids through their educational journey, help more of these kids get off IEPs if that's possible, graduate if that's possible, be ready for college or career. The more we have folks engage in this system, the better. And I think this is a really good way to help ensure that if kids don't have parents at home being their best advocates, they still have somebody at school who is their advocate. So, Mr. Speaker, I think there's a lot of reasons we should vote for this striking amendment. I sincerely hope that others on the body agree with me. I hope that others will share stories talking about how this bill would better help their family members when they've gone through the K-12 education system. But at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, education is the state's paramount duty, whether it's a kid who is in an IEP or not. This bill, both the striking amendment and the underlying amendment, take a step forward towards that goal, but I think we can take a much bigger step and a much more impactful step by adopting this striking amendment, so I urge you to vote for it, Mr. Speaker.